So at the moment, we've got three sort of approaches to this essay, which have been suggested by three of you. So just take a look at the screen and see what you think of these, and we can talk about them, tweak them, and you can borrow from these approaches, whichever one you think is most useful. So this is Robinson's idea, and he's going to have 4 paragraphs, and he's going to deal with collectivization first. So your first 2 paragraphs are going to be about collectivization. And you're going to be arguing, first of all, in paragraph 1, the ideological reasons for collectivization. And therefore, you're going to be saying collectivization was more about ideology than practical considerations. And you're going to be saying collectivization didn't make sense from a practical point of view, but they pursued it for ideological reasons.
I would completely right. I would say less.
Brilliant. Okay. And then in paragraph 2, then, I've oversimplified your paragraph 1. Your paragraph 2 is going to say, it's not true that there were no practical reasons for collectivization. There were some practical reasons for collectivization, and here they are. And then in the second half of your essay, you're going to turn to the 5-year plans, and you're going to say, in the case of the 5-year plans, it was much more about practical considerations than about ideology. 5-year plans were necessary for practical reasons because they helped with collectivization and blah, blah, blah. And it was, although there were some, in paragraph 4, there were some ideological motives for collectivization, they're less important than the practical considerations. So your conclusion, your overall argument and your conclusion is going to be that the view that Stalin's economic policies were motivated more by ideology than practical considerations is only really true for collectivization, because in the case of the 5-year plans, it was the other way around. Yeah? I think it's a good argument. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And if you do that well, and you get the rest of the essay right, and all of the examples are good, and it's well explained and so on, there's nothing to stop you getting 28, 29, 30 out of 30 on one of those essays. Yeah? The second suggestion was Melrose's suggestion. And instead of going horizontally, in other words, instead of talking about Stalin's policies, Melrose was going to talk about Stalin's motives. So he was going to go down the column. So he was going to start with the practical considerations for the 5-year plans. And he was going to argue that actually the 5-year plans were motivated largely by practical considerations. And they were because the Soviet Union was backward and needed to modernize and needed to industrialize and so on. And then he's going to say that collectivization was similarly motivated by practical considerations. Stalin was primarily making decisions because of the need to solve his problems. And then in the second half of your essay, you're going to turn to the ideological motives, and you're going to say it's not true to say that he was only concerned with practical considerations, because he was also concerned with ideological considerations. In paragraph 3, you'll talk about the 5-year plans, and then in paragraph 4, you'll talk about collectivization. And so your conclusion is going to be that it's not true. The view that Stalin's economic policies were motivated more by ideology than practical considerations is not accurate in your view. That actually, it would be more accurate to argue that Stalin's economic policies were motivated by practical considerations. Yeah? Not that there were no ideological concerns, but that practical concerns were more important to him. Brilliant. Again, nothing wrong with that at all. And your question about, is this, because it might seem like you're not really pulling the question to pieces, you're just sort of reversing the statement. Is that a problem? No, I don't think that's a problem at all. Then we had a third suggestion from Dalton. And I like this one. This is a kind of consensus post-revisionist sort of approach, because Dalton's saying it's always both. Stalin was always motivated by both ideology and practical considerations, but he's making a decision. He's making a distinction based on chronology, really, because he's saying that practical considerations were always more pressing. He always had a problem that he needed to solve. But that's not to say that ideology was ever unimportant. So he was going to be, Dalton, have I got this right? You were going to go 5-year plans, practical considerations there, and then paragraph 2, collectivization, practical considerations. Yeah. And so you're going to be arguing in both those paragraphs that the decisions were taken in both cases because there were pressing practical problems that needed to be addressed. But second half of the essay, there were always also long-term ideological goals. Yeah. I've just realized that I didn't have that going. I wonder if that makes it. Oh, no, don't. And so your argument is going to be that it's not true to say that Stalin was motivated more by one than the other. That's too simplistic. You would want to argue instead that he was always motivated by both, but they influenced him or they motivated him in different ways. Yeah, brilliant. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you write a good version of that essay, you're going to be getting 30 out of 30. Any questions about paragraph structure or arguments? Okay, in that case, we will, I'll shut up and leave you to carry on for a bit, and then maybe we'll talk about evidence and examples. Are you ready to, are you ready to start writing? Do you want to start writing?
Well, yeah, I haven't like listened and like stats and I've kind of got my points there.
Well, why don't you find the stats then? Find the evidence and type it in so that you've got the bullet points ready to go. Yeah. Coulter, which approach are you going to take? Which his approach?
Yeah. So talk about like just with my saying I was looking at my ideology and move on to practical, but then
okay. Shu, which one are you going to do?
So I like Melrose. I like
Okay, that is actually more like Dalton's then in that case. Bamford, which one are you going to do?
I'm going to do I looked at the weatherization being more ideological than passive.
So, oh, right, so you're going to do that Robinson version?
Yeah.
Yep. Right, so it's 5 to 12. What do you want to do? Do you want to keep going for a bit, make a bit more progress, or do you need a break?
I don't think that's started. So like,
Okay.
wait, so if we go to the essay now, what we do it.
Unless you're going to tell me that you've got loads of other stuff that you need to do tonight.
Wait, they're due tomorrow.
Well, I wanted to be able to mark them and give you some feedback tomorrow.
So,
yeah.
Would you say that the war scale was a practicality more than ideology, even though it was part of their ideology? Not part of their ideology, it's more like the Soviets. Could you mention delirium terms?
Yeah, and I think what you might say is that their ideology made them fear capitalist encirclement, which made them
more like vulnerable.
feel more vulnerable.